And just one final little anecdote. My center has been very critical of the industrial food animal production system in the United States because it's not sustainable. It's producing an unhealthy diet. And this myth of we're feeding the world is just that. USDA's own data from the last several years has shown that less than 2% of our agricultural export go to the 20 poorest countries in the world. We're selling our stuff to other high-income countries.
Right.
We're not feeding the world. We're exporting the high-meat American diet, which is an unhealthy diet.
And we're ruining the environment.
And we're ruining
at the
the
same time.
So we either did within the center or we funded other colleagues at the School of Public Health to do the research that contributed a great deal to our understanding of the way in which the use of low-dose antibiotics in industrial food animal production, whether it's poultry or swine in particular, or dairy cattle and beef cattle, has added to the problem of antibiotic resistance because it's a perfect storm. You have animals crowded together in dirty conditions. You give them a little bit of the antibiotic, which kills off all the susceptible bugs, and those that have had spontaneous mutations to be able to manage the antibiotics, expand and fill that ecologic niche, and before you know it, 70% of the Campylobacter and the Salmonella and the Enterococci in the average chicken are resistant to antibiotics that are important to human medicine. So somebody eats chicken that's not been thoroughly cooked, or they cut it up on their counter and then didn't clean the counter before they chopped their salad, they're exposed to antibiotic-resistant Salmonella or Campylobacter or whatever. I mean, it's a huge problem. 3 million hospitalizations per year of antibiotic-resistant bacteria in the United States alone, 23,000 deaths per year.
And that's
by
only going to
CDC.
grow.
And it's only going to grow. So some companies are catching on. Purdue.
Right.
So I go to a meeting once a year that brings together people across the spectrum, people from Monsanto and from Tyson and Purdue, and people like me and others from academia studying problems of the food system, and then a lot of people sort of in between who are in the food system, either distributing and so on. And a year ago, Jim Purdue was at this meeting, and at a coffee break I said, so Jim, he's a really nice, friendly guy, and by all accounts, a very, very effective business leader. Runs a good, successful company, but does a lot of damage to the environment. So I said, so Jim, it's really great. You've had this whole new line of antibiotic-free broilers that you're now selling, and yeah, it's really, and people are loving it. I said, so Jim, did any of the research that came out of Hopkins influence you at all in this decision? Consumer demand. Well, how do you think consumers began to demand chickens raised without antibiotics? I don't know. So I just came from the same meeting a few weeks ago before Thanksgiving, and now they're moving in the direction of a line of organically raised chickens. And I asked the same questions. I said, Jim, that's terrific. Although we're now in a little bit of a tussle because one of the board of a group of consumers in one of the counties in Maryland, where Purdue wants to expand and build a series of very large broiler houses, 100,000 birds per house, and 6 or 8 of them located over an aquifer.
Oh, wow.
And we were asked as we often are from people all over the country, consumer groups, to weigh in. And so we wrote a 7 or 8 page letter with a page of references from the peer-reviewed literature, signed by 6 of us at the center. MDs, PhDs, MPHs. And Jim was sufficiently upset about that he sent me a letter over the summer and said, Bob, you know, I thought we were on the same page on some of these issues, and we need to, you know, have you visit and learn more about our facility. That's going to happen in January. A group of Center for the Livable Future people are going to go down to Salisbury. So I saw him, actually had breakfast with him 2 weeks ago, and talked about the organic line that they're developing and that would be in these new houses. And I said, so why are you doing that? Consumer demand. I said, so the message is getting through to the consumer that the excess use of pesticides and synthetic fertilizers and so forth is unsustainable. I don't know. You know? So that's, you know, we've got to close those communication gaps. There's not anything directly similar in clinical medicine that I can think of, but in public health, population health, if we don't sit down with people on the opposition side and try to engage them and try to, for the bad actors, name and shame, but for the good actors who are trying to do the right thing, say, well, yeah, you're moving in the right direction, but this is what remains that you've got to pay attention to from a public health perspective or from a sustainability perspective.